Because every time in history that there's been this huge bureaucratic thing that everyone just thinks will blow over, some dude or woman with a big mouth with an alternative opinion goes, that's enough.
For a long time, I felt the army let me down, but the answer is it's life. Sometimes you have everything and it just gets taken from you. And it's how you respond to it. You can either be the fool or you can be the hero. So.
And that's to my last point. You got to take the leap.
Tom, I got a question for you.
Cool.
Hit leave.
Yeah.
So I've got a question for you. I mean, there's so many places we can go from our last conversation. I want to go on in this conversation to some of the higher, drier ground of being a founder. I want to talk a little bit about not only the benefits and the moments of achievement, but I want to talk about some of the very practical and tactical tools that founders need as they navigate a world that's telling them they can't do it, they won't do it, and then once they do it, how to try to take it away from them. We know this pattern. We've talked about it, I think, very well. But the first question I want to ask is an offbeat one, which is founders. As I'm learning more about them, I recognize that founders have a level of certitude around their purpose that is both inspiring and for teammates can be off-putting, because the founder is relentlessly curious about customer and need, market and need, and they're driven for all the reasons we've been talking about over these months. But how do founders actually build teams? I mean, how do they actually create teammates who are more than just loyal devotees of the founder, who have their own independence of mind, their own ferocity of spirit? How do founders attract teammates when they are, in some sense, unemployable, they're loners, they're driven, and they see what those teammates just might not be able to see? What's the team constructing for founders?
I think they struggle to build teams. I don't think they build teams. I think they build a fellowship that goes on a single quest, and that quest ends, which is why that's why high growth founders end up staying in the position a lot longer, because they set a new quest and a new quest and a new quest. And I think there's a few reasons why I think it's a quest and a fellowship and not a team. One, they convince people to go on an adventure, and a quest is a tangible outcome of an adventure. Like it's more short term in an outcome, but it's still bold. Two, it's really, the adventure means that it's going to be more tiring, so it exhausts people. And then three, a quest is more loyal to its leader. The explorer, they're more loyal to the explorer than they are the manager. So, or a team, like a captain, they're sort of way more loyal to the person in charge of the quest. But at the end of that quest, the loyalty stops. And in some cases, people in the quest sort of turn on each other. Some cases they disband and they leave and they don't talk to each other again because it was so tiring or draining. Some people have a cup that gets filled pretty quick with the amount of adventure they can take. And where I see a lot of founders at the end of, say, their quest, they think they're in I've made a mistake. They think they're in a team building business when they're really in a quest and apprenticeship business. So you stay in charge by setting another bold target and setting another quest and then conquering it. And you might have some people from that quest that are from your last one. Very rarely, though. Very rarely. Maybe one one number two or one navigator, for example, that's always valuable. But they generally really struggle because and I've been guilty of this. Like I've had people, I've gone on a quest to, they've achieved what they would amount to a lifetime adventure and achievement. And I was like, shit, that was just like 12 months. Like we just got Canada out of them. You just wanted to take Canada? And when you think that that's crazy and you take a step back and you're like, well, actually taking Canada is a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
It wasn't for me, but maybe for those individuals. So what I think is like you come out of it, you build this loyalty in this quest and you achieve and go on this adventure. And at the end of it, you've got all these skills and the thing disbands and some people are tired. Some people are, it was too traumatic. Others, they achieved it and others want to have a thirst for adventure.
Right.
And what founders fail to do is put people in those buckets. They put people in, we just did the impossible together as a team. And that's the language of business. And we built this culture. But then they get really upset when people are disloyal or people disband or people took their quest money and left or their gold and left. And I am completely guilty of all those things.
Yeah.
If I just focused on putting together a fellowship to take on a quest and had the attachment to the quest is completed, I would probably feel much better about people that I thought let me down.
Right.
When they were just tired.
So let's go back for a moment. Thank you.
But I don't believe they build teams. Teams can win multiple championships, play the same game. It's the same game every time, just different opponents. That's not what founders go on. Founders go on quest. They don't.
I got it. Wait, now hold on. I'm with you. Let me ask a question. Let's go back to the beginning when the founder has outlined what the quest is. Here's the call, denies the call, like all good founders. The first moment you deny the call, and then you come and you realize it's an unmistakable call that you have to answer. How does the founder start to identify questers?
You can see it in their eyes. It's almost like hope. I don't know. It's not hope. It's not the look. I don't know if you've ever seen hope, but you see someone that's been. If you've ever looked at someone that has cloudy eyes, and then for a flicker there's hope, there's learning going on, and they see a way out of whatever hell they're in. That's hope. It's similar to that. It's not the same. I don't know how to categorize this difference, but it's similar to that. It's almost like their neck would crane forward and their eyes would focus longer, and that's how it's different to hope. But maybe a good way of describing how knowing if someone's interested is their ears open up, they lean forward, and their eyes have a look of enduring hope. Maybe that's how I would categorize it.
Nice. And what I love about that is nowhere in that description is expertise. So the founder need not require to find those who have an expertise that they don't have. That's not necessarily a quester's requirement, is it?
I don't know what expertise is.
Expertise
so you know what I mean? Like I haven't seen it.
Well, let's put it this way.
People are great at their job that know a lot of things, but I haven't really seen in a business type landscape a true expert in something.
Right. So let's assume for a moment that it's not what you see, but it's what they themselves see. One of the characteristics of business in the Western world is that people believe they are what they do. Now, the native peoples will say, if you are who you're paid to be, you're not who you are. But in our society, many people say, my expertise is I'm a lawyer. I'm an investment banker. I do deals. I'm a mediator. I mediate. They identify their identity as the skill that they've most practiced. And so when the quest comes and Tom nails to the side of the ship a manifesto that says we're going to the far land to find the fleece, the golden fleece, many of those people who are going to come aren't going to come just to say, well, I want that fleece too. I want an adventure. They'll say, you're going to need someone who knows how to feed the men. I'm a cook. You're going to need someone. So that's what I'm getting at. How do you
say every expert that I interviewed for a job which now that I think about it, I never should have done any interviewing for a job. I should have been looking for people for a particular type of adventure, which is an interesting thought. I haven't really thought about it till then.
We'll come back to that.
Nearly every expert said no. Like someone that said they could do it, they knew how to do it and knew what I needed to do, said no. So what I found is that people would naturally form a gap in the quest that they were most interested in. And sometimes that interest came from skills or prior experience. Sometimes it came from being interested in it. And sometimes it came from wanting to learn to do it. And there's probably a natural sort of strength, but
But how do you avoid attracting people who want the quest but don't actually have the enormity of heart to be on the quest? How do you assess that? How do you not attract
they wouldn't join the quest. The group would have formed a natural group, and then and anyone that wasn't in that natural group would slowly just disappear. I've never experienced that. The other thing too is like if you're leading people, it's your job to tell people where you're going, even if you don't know where you're going. So I think only those times occur where if there's not like this is what we're going to do, we don't know what's going to happen when we do it, but it might push everything forward. There were so many things that I did in my technology that people thought were insane. But it was like it was like we needed to stick something. We needed to stick something out there. Like they needed some form of North Star to look through the desert at. So I found once you did that, you didn't really have anyone drop off, because that's it. Like you needed to set the start state and an end goal or an end outcome, and then it's your job to take the first step. I never really had a situation where people would say, yes, I want the experience of the quest. What I did have though was people that did a fantastic job on a quest and then became part of a team and would avoid objective data or the opinions of new team members by relying on the exploits of their quest.
Right.
That happens a lot.
Yeah. That's very human.
It really, when I
that's
saw
a very
that,
human piece, right?
When I saw that, it really hurt me, because I don't know why, but I was just like watching these people that were great people go into this new environment, and they would just make things up.
Right.
And then when the story didn't land where they thought it would, they just say something bad about someone in the story. That's sort of like,
right.
So
Yeah, I mean, as I say, you're welcome to the human condition, right?
Maybe businesses can't be in the quest business.
Right. Say that again.
It's a separate thing.
Say that again.
I said maybe businesses can't do quests.
Now, that's a hell of an interesting thing. What do you think of that? Do you think that's true?
I do. Maybe for me,
I guess we start with, what do we mean by businesses? I mean, businesses, when you're talking about businesses that have established themselves, talking about people who have finished the quest. Let's go back to your analogy. You're saying that the ones that finish the quest, when new people come in, if you didn't have the credentials of the quest, they didn't really want to listen to your ideas. Then you've become a business. A quest has become a business. And when it becomes a business and it is stable and it's got its revenues and its profits, and it is attracting people who know nothing about the original quest, but are actually trying to follow with their expertise into a world where they can make identity and make money, it ceases to be a quest. And
yeah, I think like, if you think about it, a startup can be a quest, but businesses call questing strategy, but they never really execute them well. And even every one of the new technologies is like a separate business in some of these big firms, where they buy the treasure from ones that have already done the quest, right? So I don't, maybe I was trying to fit people that like to go on adventures and things that they can't join a team. It's not the right thing for them. I don't think businesses are good at doing quests at all.
Right. Well, I certainly think, as somebody who has sold startups and new initiatives to businesses, they are acquiring the startup because they want the quester's passion, but their mechanism of integration is anything but Quest.
They bash the hell out of their passion. Don't you find that
yeah. Well, the passion is disruptive and the passion is messy, and businesses require order and regularity.
I don't know what businesses require.
Well, you may not. I'm just offering you another opinion.
I really don't, like, because you know, there's some part about me that speaks to these people when you talk about, say, a passion over a question. You can see on a personal level that they want to do something about it, but then they don't do anything about it. That really, I just don't get. It's almost like bipolar.
Right. It's funny that you don't get it, because I think there is a whole list of lies that the system really requires us to believe. Because I think that the systems, these businesses that you're describing are filled with questers, filled with passionate people who don't know where to go, who have long, one of the things I've learned from you in these many months is the way in which capital and money tries to get the founder to think they're subservient, tries to get the founder to think that they're actually failures. These are the things you have not done. Therefore, we're not going to put the money in at the valuation that you might deserve because you've not achieved this, this, and this. They play a game with the founder in which is all magic. It's all designed to shift the power structure back to the people who have money. And the people who have money are like the people who play Monopoly and have lots of money and no hotels, because those people always get wiped out, because money is nothing. Money is energy. It comes and it goes. So it's very interesting to me to see that when I go into an organization to do strategic work, one of the things that I'm doing is I'm locating hope, which is just what you said in terms of a quester. Number two, I want to unleash them to become insurgents, joyful insurgents. I want them to actually realize that their own identity is the space for their quest. Their own leadership is the battleground for their quest. The notion of trying to change a system that actually doesn't exist at all, it's just a hallucination created by lots of people who are trying to manage things. It's just like the early church, right? The early church Christian church was dominated by a Gnostic gospel, an extraordinary spiritual gospel. They turned it into a business. They turned it into an institution. Thou shalt and thou shalt not. And all of a sudden, everybody had rules and everybody had regulations, and the whole thing got bigger and told everybody they were going to hell or they were going to heaven. And the reality is that spiritual impulse is right there all the time in us. And I see that in systems all the time. I go into systems and the people in those systems have come to believe the system is real. And the fact is, they are the system. And so the person that actually says, hey, you weren't on the quest with me and Tom, now you're coming in and you're talking about doing something a different way. We don't do it like that. They don't realize they've become the system. And I don't believe that people have to stay that way. I think they can be released
I think you are completely right. I just think it's now easier, and it could be wrong. It's easier now to overload people with information.
Yes.
So then it's harder to create thought.
Yes.
So I just think, like, for example, it's like, okay, if you can only mail a letter like once a fortnight or once a month around your business to get it to work, then you're going to take much more time on that letter and think it through. Now you don't. You just text something, you can fucking tweet something, you can film a video. Like, there's no thought going, like, people aren't thinking, and by the time they should think, there's too much content from something else. So it's really interesting. That's why I made that comment about the GED creating independent thinkers and college doesn't, because it sort of forces you to go into the arena by yourself. Which means if you're in an arena by yourself, the one thing about arenas when you're in them is they're deathly quiet on the inside. Yeah. You can't hear anything. So, I just think that you're right. I just think, hope is low.
Yeah. And look, listen to me. This is the first tool that I would propose to the founders that are watching and listening to you and learning from you. The monthly letter. You're never going to have, as a founder at the beginning of your quest, you're never going to have the latitude and the ability to think as deeply and as far reaching a way as you do right now, when your idea is forming and pushing on your temples and busting out through your clothing. This is the time to write yourself, whether it's the weekly or bi-weekly or monthly.
Yeah, I used to call it I used to write one called the CEO Musing, and I'd be like, the way the letter used to be, like, this is what I'm up to, this is what I've learned, this is what I've got wrong. And I did it for like maybe 3 years and everyone really liked it. And then I just stopped.
Right, of course. But it's part of what you're doing with this Founders Journal. I mean, you're doing the same thing in these interviews. You're playing around with deep thoughts, and sometimes those thoughts lead to despair. Sometimes those thoughts lead to absolute clarity around how systems work. But I do believe that what you're saying, the CEO's Journal, is, and it's interesting that you called it the CEO's Journal and not the Founders Journal.
I called it amusing.
Amusing. But you called it a CEO's musing. And why did you use a business term for a founder's mind?
Because I think it's a tool that the CEO should use, the next CEO should use. I didn't build it for just myself. That's what people don't. What I'm saying is that, the way bureaucracies manage is they don't manage in policies and direction. They manage in the gray area. Like they form power by people thinking that someone's doing something and then using that to their advantage. It's like a really weak political system. It's like, so for example, if I make it the CEO's musing, if everyone's worried about what the CEO is going to think, you're never going to worry about what the CEO thinks if he just tells you what he's thinking all the time. And the reason I did that was so people would know 3 things. 1, I'm not too different from you, I'm learning. 2, it's not a good job and I hate being a CEO. And I used to end it every letter that way. And 3, if you see that I'm discussing ideas with myself, the idea that anyone could raise an idea to the CEO that could be discussed means that it was a growth mindset. It's the simple thing of the best idea could come from anyone here. That's why I did it that way. So then the next CEO could use it, and then people were safe around the position, safe around ideas.
Yeah, listen, I think this is spectacular. And the thing that I'm intrigued about.
Then I stopped doing it.
What's that? Yeah, but we'll come to that. But let's go back to when you did it. What's interesting to me is when you did it, you must have thought there was an intimacy between quest and business. You must have thought that, because you wouldn't have called it a CEO's musing. You would have called it a heroic journeyer's musing. You on some level knew that leaders should behave in their businesses as if they're on a quest, correct?
Yeah, on some level, if leaders looked at their people optimistically, they would see them all as questers.
Right. Okay. So freeze with that. Big one, big point. If leaders will look at their people optimistically, then they can incent and excite people to stay in the quest, whether it be a business or a quest. They've been seen for the potentiality of who they are. That, it seems to me, is fundamental to successful leadership, right? Fundamental.
That and leading by example. Like the other component of it is, you're not really insecure in your thoughts, or you are, but at least you're letting people know.
Right. So can we come back then to counsel to this founder who feels the pulse of what they know they want to do, who knows it's a quest, who's trying to figure out who will join them. Some might lean forward with that indefinable sense of hope in their eyes, but others will be people that they see, that they're inspired by. They say to this person, I see you. I see what you can do. Come and join me. That is a very powerful leadership principle, isn't it?
I think so.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the way I used to sort of do it was a bit differently. There's a concept in a very special military unit, and it's who dares wins. So I used to just say, at the end of some of these sessions when I meet people, I'm like, hey, the train's leaving, whether you're on it or not. What are you going to do next? The other comment we used to have in the military is like, what's next, platoon commander? Like it's what the directing staff would do when there's a moment of crisis, and they'd look at the cadet that's leading the platoon. It's like, what's next, platoon commander?
I love it.
And it worked.
I love it.
And that's how I used to end the comments. I never really looked back. I just walk out of the room.
Right.
I think the optimism though gets destroyed when people start getting considered as human resources and not.
Yeah. Listen, I want you to know that part of what's powerful about this conversation each week is that there's a full range, and you are managing your own despair and disheartenment at the same time that you're managing your own brilliance and excitement. And what I think we've focused on a little bit today, which is very valuable and which we need to keep going in the next session, is we're focused on these moments at the beginning before you felt the fullness of the journey and the end of the quest, is to come back to the calling and the initiation and the beginning, because there is in that place an enormous energy and excitement, and there are powerful tools that you've built. We will always have on offer for those who listen to you the caution of where it ends, of how it could end badly. It's basically like dying. We're all gonna die, and someone's gonna sit by our bed, and we may be shitting that bed and drooling, and we may be barely able to see who's there. Such is our finish. But the miracle of this life is in doing what we can, when we can, how we can. And so I want to agree that we're going to pick up this conversation again on, you've left us with substantive tools, the CEO's letter, CEO's musings, the ability to look for that slightly craned forward face that has hope in their eye, even if their eyes are gray. When you see the flash of hope, it's the reminder that it's there. The ability to understand that it's a quest and not a business. The ability to convey that. These are substantive, powerful things for people to think about. And I would ask those who are listening to you right now to go back and ask themselves, am I thinking in terms of a quest, or am I thinking in terms of ARR and outcomes and being rich? Because one of the things I see in a lot of young entrepreneurs now is they think of scale, and they think of somehow making their mark by achieving $100 million or a IPO or an outcome. They're not questers. Are you a quester? Are you?
They've forgotten. Yeah.
They've forgotten. And part of what you do, Tom, and why you're important is you remind us, you remind founders who they are. And you may be saying, I wish I didn't. It's like my elders say to me, I don't envy you. I wouldn't want to be you. And that's what they're saying. They know it's going to end in sadness, but they also know you're one of a kind. So you are that. And let's agree to pick up again on these powerful tools that you deployed. I'd like to go back to the early days of With You, With Me, very specifically, very practically, to talk about some of the decisions you made, but extremely helpful today. Very.
Cool. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time. See you.